I mean, I'm not sure whether you're going to agree with that.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the word evolution just now, and it seems to me that here is a concept which originated in one of the sciences, namely biology, and which over a comparatively short period of time has spread throughout the whole of our culture, so that the way almost everybody thinks is influenced by the notion of evolution, not only about the origins of man, but about institutions or the arts or all kinds of other things. I mean, evolution has become a dimension of Western man's thinking about almost anything. Is that not so?
That's right. And perhaps there has not been enough attention to this theory, though what strikes me as interesting is that the possibility of explanations of what we think of as the biological kind, explanations in terms of function rather than in terms of the building, physics and chemistry, what you're made of, have come under more attention recently as a result of computer science.
Now this does raise something I'm particularly interested in when you talk of computer science, and that is the interaction between our technology, in the case of computers, and philosophy. Not just science and philosophy, but technology and philosophy. I mean, computers were originally constructed on the basis of a self-conscious analogy with the human mind, weren't they? But as they became more and more sophisticated, we began to learn things from them about the human mind. So our construction of computers and what they then tell us about ourselves seems to actually proceed by interactive growth. Isn't that so?
That's right. And today, this is one area, by the way, in which philosophers are in close contact with scientists. That is, the fields of linguistics, cognitive psychology, computer science, and philosophy of language today interact constantly. People send papers to one another, not because someone tells them to. There are conferences at which specialists in these fields meet together, again, not because someone decided there should be some cross-fertilization. The interesting thing about the computer case, if I can stick with it for a moment, is one might have thought that the computer, the rise of the computer, would encourage a certain kind of vulgar materialism. The idea is, so after all, we are machines, so after all, everything about us can be explained in terms of physics and chemistry. Paradoxically, the real effect of the computer on psychology and on philosophy of mind has been a decrease in that kind of reductionism. See, the thing about the computer is that when you work with computers, you very rarely have to think about their physics and chemistry. There's a distinction that people draw between their software, meaning their program, their instructions, their rules, the way they do things, and their hardware. And generally you ignore their hardware. You talk about computers at the software level, and you wouldn't really be able to explain what they do in a way that would be of any use to anyone in terms of the hardware level. There is a kind of emergence here, although it's not a mystical kind of emergence. It's not that they're violating the laws of physics. It's just that the level of at higher level facts about organization have a kind of autonomy. You'd say the fact that it's following this program explains why it does this, and I don't need to know how it's built. I only need to know it can be built in such a way that it will follow this program. This is a return to a view, if you apply this to the mind, it suggests a return to a view of the mind that I associate with Aristotle. There's the view that we are not ghosts in a machine, not spirits which only temporarily embodies, but that the relation between the mind and the body is a relation of function to what has that function. Aristotle said if you use the word soul in connection with an axe, and of course he said you don't, you'd say the soul of an axe is cutting. And he said the soul of the eye is seeing. And he thought of man as a thing that thinks.
Yes, you're talking now of the alternative to materialism and, say, a religious view that this gives us. Puts me in mind instantly of the most significant of all the materialist philosophers in the modern world, namely Marxism, which after all is the official state philosophy of about a third of mankind as we sit here discussing this. Marxism claims to be scientific, and this is a very important thing about it. Is there a significant Marxist contribution to the philosophy of science?
I don't think there's a significant Marxist contribution, but I don't think that the Marxists were all wrong either. I think Engels was one of the most scientifically learned men of his century. He got a number of things wrong, but he had an immense general scientific knowledge. And Anti-Düring, his big book on philosophy of science, although it contains some rather strange ideas, some of which he gets from Hegel, by the way, is on the whole a sensible book on philosophy of science, among other things. On the other hand, it's not specifically Marxist. I'd say that Engels' views in philosophy of science are in large part influenced by the standard philosophy of science of the time. They're a fairly sophisticated, inductive account.